Title: Majapahit, a kingdom that lives in memories long before modern Indonesia was formed. There existed a kingdom that believed that unity was not only strength but also a promise. The Majapahit Empire was founded in 1293 in East Java, rising from the ruins of conflict. Its founder, Raden Wijaya, was not the strongest warlord of his time, but he was one of the most astute. Surrounded by enemies, he used diplomacy, patience, and perfect timing to play rivals against each other. Majapahit was born not through brute force but through strategy and psychological insight. After Raden Wijaya, the throne passed through several kings. But one name stands out above the rest: Hayam Wuruk. Under his reign in the 14th century, guided by his legendary Prime Minister Gajah Mada, Majapahit reached what many consider its golden age. Gajah Mada made a bold vow, the Palapa Oath, declaring that he would not feel content until the archipelago was united. Whether literal or symbolic, the idea itself is powerful. It creates trust. And trust moves people more than armies can. At its peak, Majapahit's influence stretched across much of Southeast Asia. But something that is not widely known. Majapahit was not a tightly controlled empire like modern states. It was more like a network of loyalties, bound by trade, culture, and shared myths. Power flowed through relationships, not borders. Culturally, Majapahit was highly adaptable. Hinduism and Buddhism coexisted, blending with local traditions. Art, literature, and law flourished. One famous phrase from this era, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, meaning unity in diversity, still defines Indonesia today. That idea didn't originate in modern politics. It stemmed from Majapahit's understanding of human nature. But the story of Majapahit isn't just about greatness. It's also about impermanence. After Hayam Wuruk's death, internal conflict weakened the kingdom. Elites vied for power. Trust eroded. Slowly, Majapahit declined, not because of a single invasion, but because unity faded from within. And perhaps that's the most human lesson of all. Majapahit reminds us that civilizations don't just collapse when they're defeated, but when they forget why they came together in the first place. Empires disappear, ideas remain. In that sense, Majapahit never truly disappeared. It lives on, in language, culture, and in the quiet belief that diversity, when understood, can be a strength. Majapahit after the Golden Age. How a great empire learned to die. Majapahit was founded in 1293, rising from the ruins of betrayal and invasion. Under kings like Raden Wijaya, strengthened by the iron will of Gajah Mada, and refined during the reign of Hayam Wuruk, it became the greatest empire Southeast Asia has ever known. But this story isn't about how Majapahit rose. It's about what happened after its peak. When Hayam Wuruk died in 1389, Majapahit didn't collapse overnight. Instead, it slowly lost its way, like a giant no longer knowing which way to go. Power shifted to the ruler who inherited the throne, but not its vision. The court became divided. Nobles vied for influence. Old loyalties turned into secret rivalries. And then came the Paragreg Civil War, a devastating conflict between the kingdom's factions that destroyed Majapahit from within. Many people don't realize this. Majapahit wasn't defeated by a stronger enemy. It exhausted itself. The trade routes that once flowed through Majapahit's ports began to shift. New Islamic sultanates like Malacca and Demak adapted more quickly to the changing world. They embraced new networks, new beliefs, and new identities. Majapahit tried to hold on to the past. Culturally, this period was not a vacuum, it was transformative. As political power faded, art, literature, and spiritual thought deepened. Hindu-Buddhist traditions didn't disappear overnight. They migrated into local rituals, stories, and wisdom. Psychologically, the people of Majapahit faced something profound. the loss of their position as the center of the world. Imagine growing up believing your kingdom ruled the seas, and then watching it become a distant memory. Instead of resistance, many chose adaptation. Former nobles became local leaders. Priests became teachers. The symbols of empire turned into myths. Majapahit didn't end in flames. It dissolved into the cultures that followed. And perhaps that is its greatest legacy. Because even after the empire collapsed, its influence lived on, in Java, in Bali, and in the idea of unity that would one day inspire a nation. Majapahit reminds us of a powerful truth. Empires don't truly die when their capital falls. They die when people stop believing in them. And sometimes they survive precisely because they learn how to let go. Majapahit hasn't vanished. It lives on in modern Indonesia. When people hear the name Majapahit, they usually imagine an ancient kingdom, stone temples, ancient inscriptions, dusty pages in history books. Something majestic, but long gone. But what if Majapahit never truly disappeared? What if it quietly evolved, and still shapes the way Indonesia thinks, leads, and survives today? Majapahit wasn't just powerful because of its territory. Its power was actually psychological. It ruled a vast and diverse region without forcing everyone to conform. Different cultures, beliefs, and identities were allowed to exist under a single, shared political imagination. The idea sounds familiar, doesn't it? Long before modern Indonesia was born, Majapahit had already instilled something akin to Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity without uniformity. Here's a rarely discussed detail. Majapahit didn't rely solely on military dominance. It relied on dura, inner determination, controlled pride, and emotional discipline. Power wasn't expressed out loud. Leaders were expected to master themselves before ruling others. This mindset still resonates today in how Indonesian leadership is culturally expected to appear calm, collected, and symbolically strong rather than aggressive and dominant. Majapahit also understood networks. Not just trade routes but also human relationships. Alliances were built through trust, marriage, shared rituals, and mutual respect. That legacy lives on in Indonesia's social fabric, where informal connections, community ties, and unspoken obligations are often as important as written rules. Even modern Indonesia's skepticism of extreme individualism can be traced back to this. Majapahit culture emphasized balance between ambition and harmony, personal desires and collective stability. Success was not about standing alone, but about standing within a system. That's why, even today, Indonesians often measure progress not just by personal achievement, but also by how it impacts family, community, and nation. And perhaps the most overlooked legacy, resilience through adaptation. Majapahit didn't collapse overnight. It adapted, transformed, and dissolved into new forms, cultures, traditions, political ideas, rather than disappearing. Indonesia is similar to that survivalist. Through colonization, revolution, reform, and crisis, the country continues to reshape itself rather than collapse. So Majapahit is not just a past empire. It is a mindset, a serene blueprint for how a complex society remains unified, flexible, and emotionally resilient for centuries. The empire collapsed, but its mindset never disappeared.